Alito. Ocio to the copper colored people. And this is Firewolf. As you guys know, the name will be changing. And Clan. And we'll have more of the, well, I don't know, we should say Firewolf and Clan, or maybe Firewolf and Tribe, or, you know, I don't want to ruffle no feathers. You know, these words could be real, like landmines. So you got to be real careful how you speak, or how you speaking to the Indians or the American Indigenous people out there, because they take things out of content, or, you know, you just got to be careful. It's like landmines with these words. And, you know, the words is what's been used against us in this perpetual satanic system we seem to be stuck in. So, y'all haven't seen him in a while. Y'all see my mini. Y'all don't even know this boy is tall as heck. He's like 6'1" now.
Yeah.
Playing basketball and everything, so we act like he ain't got no time to talk to y'all no more. You know, y'all see how he done grown. It's just a couple years and he done just sprouted, and he's, what am I, 5'10", and he's way taller than me. So yeah, I gotta look up to this little wolf right here. And there's, you know, the wifey right there, y'all. So what's on y'all mind today? What we gonna talk about? I got several things. Shout out to Tariq Nasheed. Shout out to you, bruh, doing the documentary. But I'm gonna have to do a segment. We're gonna have to do a segment on Legendary Talkcast by himself, because he's the one I feel like should be. He ain't gonna really get that recognition that he should be getting, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, his style and everything. But he's the one I feel qualified to do a documentary on the Maroons, which is the so-called runaway slaves, which he talks about. Tariq Nasheed, he's on. You know, a lot of people, that's kind of that foundational Black Americans is what he likes to put his people in. You know, that's the category, and that's to deal with so-called the so-called Black people of America is what he's singling out. And he's showing you that we ain't trying to have foreigners in, which we already been talking about, because when you get into this so-called black color, you all just get lumped into one little category. And he was making a good point when he was talking about, you know, as far as reparations and restitution and stuff that we deserve on our own land. He was also saying that the reason why he started the FBA, which is the Foundational Black Americans, was that so it would separate different, ethnic cultures. Because he was saying, like, you could have, so-called Black people from Africa or from Europe. Talking about, where's mine at, coming over here, and where's ours at, and trying to get in. And he was like, which we all know this has been a problem with us, with this so-called black word. It lumps everybody in, and it makes the water murky. So you can't see who is who. Right? So then, not only that, you tend to allow everybody to get in. And that's what he was pointing out also, was that we tend to, just like we did allowing these foreigners to come here and colonize and do all these things, we tend to allow, we keep allowing the foreigners to come in. And we let them, it's like we give them a head start. We boost them up, and he was saying we got to start boosting ourselves up. We've been taught this help everybody else, like Granny would do. Your great grannies and them, they let all the kids come in and eat if they're hungry and feed them, but she made sure that the household was fed first. What we doing is the opposite. We making sure everybody else is fed and not us. And that's a problem. When you're inviting everybody to the table and you tell your rest of your family, stay back, let them eat first, and we'll just get the scraps. So shout out to him. He's going to do that documentary, The Maroons. And he talks about how You know, it was hard, which we all done read this. Most of y'all that's in the know, you know, a lot of us done read about, you know, how so-called black people were staying out in the swamps and, you know, controlling the land. And we knew how to get away and things like that. So that's what he's talking about with the Maroons, how with their rebellions and stuff and how they was escaping into the swamps, you know. So that's what I was been looking at and reading on, again touching up on it, along with you know, the so-called colorism and the mixing. And you know, my wife has a book, Nature Has No Color Line, that she's had for a while, but she's been digging back into it. And also with the political, you know, knowing us that we started the Republican Party, and you know how we got lost and bamboozled and switched, and now we got this another thing Tariq Nasheed was talking about that they tried to use against him, was he's talking about Biden giving the people crack pipes, you know. And what he's saying is because he's trying to legalize the drug usage. You legalize crack, legalize meth, and make it to where, you know, you can go and get it and it's controlled, you know.
Another way for them to make money off of it.
To make money off of them, but also off of us. So the same thing that they used against us, you know, the same thing with marijuana. They used it against us and locked us up, gave all our family and loved ones all that time, and then turned around and legalized it. You know, so I'll pass the mic. I'll yield the mic.
Again, it's another way to make money off of it. I also seen something where Biden was talking about getting people back to the workplace, and for them not to be working at home anymore. In this country, we have it set up where family is the last task on the totem pole to have anything that's dedicated to it. And by them doing that, that means you can't strengthen your family. You're not dedicating the time that you need to your family as much time as you are putting into their workforces. So if you can do the same amount of work at home as you can in the office, why should you have to go back to the office to work? That makes no sense to me.
They're pulling us apart from our families.
Right.
They don't want us to stay in contact.
Right. Keeps it divided, keeps it unproductive as a unit. That also make way for the irresponsibleness of like the kids in the household, because they know the parents are away and the parents are most time exhausted because the average work day is not 8 hours anymore. A lot of them have extended it where it's longer, and you're getting out there and you're working 10, 12 hours a day. The last thing you want to come home is put that extra energy into your household when it should be the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great topic that she's talking about. And yeah, that's exactly what they do. They disconnect. And that's one thing that, you know, that a lot of us speak on also, onto the previous topic I was talking about with Tariq Nasheed, how we single out from the rest is through our genealogy. Genealogy is what it separates everybody. But back on what she was talking about also, yeah, it disconnects everybody. So you have a whole household that's disconnected. So when you have that, then you have the kid that's left to raise itself or raise themselves.
Latchkey.
And you really see where that's led us to with the kids. You know, it's the internet is like a
vulture.
It's a portal, and whichever portal you jump through, you can get into some crazy activity. They got everything on the internet now. You know how to blow a house off the foundation, how to make guns. Everything out of plastic, you know, everything is on there. So, and then you see what you got with with this generation, and a lot of them's not using it for beneficial. It's not beneficial. They're not using it for the beneficial of themselves. They're using it for the destruction of themselves and their mind, their body, and their soul. And that's a portal. That's a portal. that you go through. You see how when it's loading, it goes around. You know, that's a portal. So, you know,
it's a portal when they tell you they can see you as well as you can see them. There's no reason for someone to be watching you as you're looking into the online web. But there's a lot of gadgets that they've created these days that they can invade your space. You have to be real vigilant of that. I don't know if you notice, like if you get online, you'll be typing in for something that you're looking for, and then all of a sudden in your email, you get all these things that you've been searching for, but you didn't necessarily put in your email address. I've been noticing a lot of that lately.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really us that got to take control of our household. I know it's more comfortable for us sometimes to let them have it, but if you remember the days of yesteryears, those families were putting in work. Without the internet, they worked as a unit. They got up early in the morning, they did their farm work. The kids after that went to school, and they were stronger for that because they were working as a team and a support system. Whereas everyone now is kind of like all in their own spaces, doing their own individual thing, where it becomes a struggle to get back to the norm because now the abnormal is normal, and everyone is looking at like, hey, we're not supposed to be doing that now, you know. Hey, I had to get on the internet. I was waiting for this one thing to come on. But it's really important and crucial that your kids stay connected to the parent's voice versus the outside voice and what they hear online. They hear the outside voice, that become the parent, and you become secondary. And they're not believing what you're telling them anymore because that world outside has taken over. It's an invasion of privacy. It's an invasion of your space. But a lot of us is okay with that happening because it gives them less responsibility. So,
yep. Shout out to the wifey shirt right there. What's that say on there, boy?
Buffalo Soldiers.
Mm-hmm. So what do you have to say on this?
I think it's true. I think, especially TikTok nowadays, everybody's on that. I feel like that's where everybody's getting new ideas from. And people just be posting anything on TikTok.
Like what?
Dancing. Sometimes people will post fights. Sometimes you'll see some educational stuff, but not all the time. Most of the time, it's just stuff to keep you hooked on and make you keep scrolling and make you waste time.
By the time you know it, what?
It's already nighttime. Stuff happening.
Do I be on there?
Mm-mm.
I'm guilty.
Are you guilty?
Yeah.
I don't be on it, y'all. I ain't got none of that.
I got first-hand experience.
And how about you? What's your first hand?
I do have first-hand experience. I think it's, for me, because of the day-to-day, I think from my reasoning from being on there is different than my son's reasoning from being on there. Sometimes when you go to work, and this is not an excuse, but it is what it is. You go to work, you have to be so serious. You have to stay on top of stuff so much all day long. In the house, you have to be on top of stuff all day long. Sometimes you just want to be empty-minded and just be free-flowing. That can get you into trouble sometimes, and a lot of stuff get not done. But at the same time, sometimes you just want to disconnect from all the madness. Because like I said, I go to work at 7. Sometimes I get off at 4. Sometimes I get off at 5. Depending on the day. So it's just like a long work day, and you just don't want so much intensity in your day.
I just be bored. That's why I be on it.
So how come you ain't doing no research? You ain't reading?
Nah. It's just when I come home from school, I just be chilling.
But see, that's what happens, y'all. Is that the
Desensitizes.
system that's set up is set up for us to lose all the way around. And this is what you get. Is like they feel like that's an escape, and they don't want to do more research into it. Disconnects the kids, disconnects them in all different kind of ways. It's like this is something like a blender. I don't know what you could say. It's like a blender that they putting us through, and that they've been putting us through. As far as like with the kids, they attack the youth. The youth is who they really want.
Because it desensitizes them from a lot of stuff that should be serious. Like, it's not normal to watch people fight all the time. That's not normal. It's not normal to see all this anger and aggression. You get desensitized when you see a lot of it. It's kind of like when they start playing video games. And I understood when they were wanting to pull like Grand Theft Auto. All your kids should be watching that kind of stuff. That stuff is not normal. But it desensitizes the kids, and it becomes like this alternate metaverse that they're in, where they're out of touch almost with reality. They don't know what's real and what's fake. But it's us parents that got to be governing that. It's for you to govern that. I don't think it's a problem with the kids being online. I do think, like with everything, it should be done in moderation. And that should not be the major part of their day. They should not be leaning like hours and hours on the internet or on a video game. That should not be the most important part of their day, or the most of the time that they spend within a day. There's so much stuff that they can learn. You look at everything that's going on right now. I think we're going to start wanting to teach our kids a whole lot of other stuff, like how to plant, grow stuff. I mean, there's just so much stuff going on right now. We're going to have to get back to basics, to those ancestors. They was growing their own food. I know all my relatives back in yesteryears had farms. They always grew something. Even my grandma.
To the ancestors. Up.
Before she passed, though she didn't live on a farm, she came from the farm life. She always planted something. Some type of vegetables. I remember her planting tomatoes. I can't remember what else she had on that porch. Do you remember? But she had she went and bought her dirt. She went and got her seeds, and she had it in her pot. And she had like 3 pots. I can't remember. I know one was tomatoes because she loved fresh tomatoes out of the garden. But we need to get back in tune with that.
There's a lot of them that is, though. There's a lot of people and a lot of them in the, the inner cities and stuff, especially when you start going, back west and stuff. A lot of us is growing out of the gangs, because the gang thing is just like you read about with the Indians. We're no different. It's the same culture and everything. It's just now that they put you ain't Indians no more, you so-called black people with these street wars. But anyways, the point that I'm saying is that it was a kid thing. The gang thing is just a bunch of us kids with no dads, no guidance, looking for guidance. And we got a lot of us have our relatives that's in that lifestyle. Some of us have friends or friends' brothers and dads that's in there. And we look to them as role models. And this is these gang bangers that we follow behind. And so that's what we were doing as young. It's a kid thing. Just like a young lion. When they nomads or wolves, they going around causing trouble. They tell you the juvenile wolves, they're running around, they're full of testosterone, they fighting, they crossing barriers they shouldn't cross. Same thing that we was doing, But as you become older, you have to put them things away. You have to put the childish, as the Bible says, you put away your childish, behavior. When I became a man. So with that being said, it's a lot of them out there that's becoming good role models now in men. A lot of the ex gangbanging homies and stuff. They're starting a lot of the farms, stuff like that. They're got these things, Take Back the Hood, where it's teaching them how to grow, how to make organic stuff, picking the seeds, because a lot of these seeds are, what do they call it? Genetically modified. So, finding the right seeds and things like that. So shout out to them, arrows up to all them that's showing the youth a different way, a different life, and trying to straighten up, take back the streets, take back the hood, do what we need to do. Because that's what we were doing. We naturally had these, not all of us, but a lot of us come from these green thumb,
It's
people.
A system group. It's a system group. In a system group, you have everyone that had a different role that contributed to the group as a whole. So.
So how do you feel? It seems like we're coming out of this COVID thing. But it was.
It ain't talking about COVID no more.
Where did it go?
I don't know.
Where in the heck did it go? It just now all of a sudden it just kind of faded away. What was that book they were showing? I don't know if it was ever real though. That book that it was talking about COVID, it already predicted.
Oh.
What was it, Dean Koontz book? Or something like that, and it was talking about it. They would create a disease from China, and then it would fade away in 3 to 4 years.
There's actually there's actually a couple books. I don't know the name off the top of my head. There's one book that I've started, have not stopped, finished. I have a couple that I'm reading right now. But they also, I don't know if you remember the speech that Obama gave, he spoke on it too, and they tried to help and hush him up about it, where he was talking about there was going to be a pandemic that we needed to get ready for. It was going to happen, I think he said 2019, 2020, and they tried to hush him up about it. So
I don't know, they tried to hush him up because he's all a part of the system.
And
how do you feel about that? How do you feel? Do you feel like he was your people?
I don't know, cause ain't he the president who accepted the gay marriage and all that? Mm-hmm. He's the one who passed the law. I don't know if he's for the people.
I'm saying, is he you think he's indigenous?
No, I think he's mixed.
But what is he mixed with?
Caucasian, the Europeans and all of them.
And what? Like, do you see him? Do you ever see anybody that reminds you of him that you see in your family? Does he look similar?
Sometimes he kind of looks like Grandpa.
Papa?
Grandpa Greg.
Nah, I wouldn't say that.
Just a little bit.
So what are you? You're saying he was?
No, I don't think what they get up there and say have variant on what they are and what they aren't. I just think sometimes they get to talking too much and they don't know when to be quiet, because it was a part of his speech, and they don't write their own speeches. Mm-hmm. So I just think it kind of like slipped out, and that's why they try to help and push that up under there, like, hey, you done said a little too much, or somebody done wrote that in there and they shouldn't have. But I think you can learn stuff from everybody, good or bad. But I think it's relative to what the topic is, and not so much them trying to help. I think sometimes people have a tendency to talk, and they talk too much. It's just a matter of how long you let them stay up there.
That's a good point. I like to, man, I don't know, I'm focused, like, Tariq Nasheed is doing, man, he got my mind blown, like, for real. And I don't know, like, what category to put him in, because I'm always like, you gotta learn one thing about me, y'all. I'm very sketchy on people.
Skeptical.
Yeah, skeptical, sketchy. I'm always looking at him with a sketchy eye, like, what's you know, I'm always with the time will reveal everything to you. So you will see. Time is on your side. Time is on our side. It will show you who is for us, who is against us. Because I know he has...
Didn't he come from a different camp?
Who, Tariq Nasheed? What do you mean, like camp?
I thought he came from a different camp.
What do you mean by camp?
Because I thought I seen something. Let me look it up.
No, Tariq Nasheed, he did that video. Remember, it was Hidden Colors, where he was showing all the so-called black people all over the world, how in Europe they were kings and stuff. He basically shows you the greatness of them, of all these all over. But what he was doing back then was kind of lumping everybody in, like this is all of us. Now he's focused on the home front, America. He knows, like, this is us. He's come to that conclusion through genealogy, through going to these places that he's starting to say, like, he's came out the last few years, like, nah, we these people, like, but I think he has a twist on there too with the foundational black Americans, is that they ventured out of Africa thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. You know, he's with the migration thing. Even though he says this is our land, he believes that we migrated and came in here, which we all know that isn't true. But I think that's what I don't know, I gotta sit back and watch him though, because this can be another one of those hoodwink moments. You know, you don't know what the end result is. I don't know what these cats, but he's starting out to look pretty good, pretty decent. You know, if he stick to his genealogy, he gonna get a long ways, and then he start putting his people on there, because I know he talks about it a little bit, but I don't know how deep he's dived into there.
I have to find it. I had seen something last week. He was part of someone's YouTube discussion.
Oh, he's on a lot. He's a hot topic right now. He's a hot topic, like everybody. But like I said, when we do our build on Legendary Topcast, that's a whole nother. He got to have his own. I've always in the past given everybody a shout out when you was younger. Just a few years ago, I mean, you wasn't that much younger. You was about 5'6". Now you 6'1". Since the last time I seen you, but we'd always give shouts out to Dane Calloway, Phoenix Moon, A1, the Thompson's One, Cootie Mail, Con Drop, 432 Drop, Lex Will. There's so many. Medicine Man. I don't want to leave nobody out. There were so many of them, but they were all doing a part, and it was excellent. And, all these guys, like, with the so-called knowing who the black Europeans were, the Negropeans. Con Drop, Lex Will, Cootie Mail, all these guys came. But Topcast put the icing on the cake. He separated everything and broke everything down. And I think that's what makes him so legendary. Is that brother is like, he's very well, versed in his lane that he has. And, there's Sister Truth Uncompromised too. She does a good thing. Shout out to American Heiress. She's coming back. Arrows up to you, sister. But, yes, a lot of them that we gave props to, but with him, I feel like I got to give him, we're going to have to just break down and just go on a straight purge of his so you can really see. Because I know I sent you a lot of his videos and stuff. And I know his vocabulary, I think, was what you...
His delivery.
Yeah. So, but anyways, he is like, we're just going to have to purge on it. I'm going to have to purge on it with all of them. He already was on it. So, my son already knows there were certain things I'd always fast forward it. Past, when he going to talk his talk, but he enlightened me to a lot, like, seriously, like, and it just made, what he did was, I want to say, like, he just tied it all together, is what I'm trying to say. He tied everything together instead of it just being scattered or, okay, this or that. He can walk you through the history.
He shows proof. He brings the...
Not just that, but he lines it up.
Paperwork
he lines
to make
it
up. Make sense.
Yeah, he lines it up. He does a good job of lining up time frame, things like that, because that, I think, was what will get me into a lot of problems when I used to do research, was I'd be on this, and trying to figure out the bones, things.
I think the biggest thing that's confusion when doing that type of research is time periods. You don't realize that certain things were simultaneously happening. If you don't connect it, like how he's been able to connect it in his videos, you would think that it happened in a whole different time frame. When actuality, they may not be near each other, but it was happening around at the same time frame.
So shout out to the wifey, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what he does. That's exactly, it's like what got a lot of the people too, is that everything is at different time frames. And you keep to thinking like it's all the same, like, and then what he did was came in and just separated. So now that's what I do now. Whenever I'm doing research, now I just want this time period and I want what's going on, and I want everything that was going on around that time period. Let's say in 1720s or 1740, when they was 1740, 1741 with the Negro Act, the Black Codes, when they placed it. I want to know what was going on in Georgia. I want to know what was going on in Louisiana at that time. I want to look at all them areas at that same time, what was popping off. And he does, like, that's where he jams up a lot of the Pan-Africans, the knockoff Africans. That's where he gets them.
He doesn't relegate it to a group, like how the so-called blacks.
That's what I'm saying. They
just keep it at that little space. But, where was the Hispanics and where was the Spaniards at this time? What were they doing over in Europe? Like, if you listen to some people and the theories, the stories that they gave you, you'd only think it was white and black that was happening. There was nobody else around that time frame in any other space. Like, if it was in Georgia, shoot, I don't know what was happening in Texas. Georgia must had it. I guess they were just quiet in Texas. It was just at Georgia. Everything, they were just at odds.
But they have different laws and different, what would you call it? Different politics, different laws were, you know, in different places.
No,
It's the same way, like, if you come to, remember on the West Coast, I think it was the first time where they passed the 3 strikes laws, and then it went, basically,
what I'm saying is, even though they have different laws, there was stuff happening in each place. But if you listen to the stories they tell you, it's just happening there. Well, if it was just happening there, what was happening with the other cultures that was in that country? Were they not being divisive and lined up with the Caucasians in these stories? Or was it just the Caucasians and the labeled black people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what was going on? And then, so I think that's what's interesting. And then it's interesting to find out how they'll tell you, when you find out that you have these two races, that you have people with other cultures and backgrounds that have aligned with a certain group, but some of those people that have aligned with those certain groups resemble some of the other people in the opposing parties. Mm-hmm. So, but when you listen to the stories that are told, you already have it fixed in your head just because of all the stories and all the stuff that's been placed in history given to you. You already identified these two groups of people, just these two group of people, and it was these people had the power and they was demeaning these group of people.
Which isn't true, to speak on that, because then you start to get into, and that's an interesting topic. It was when I was looking into A.J. Johnson. You know, he was one of the so-called black...
A.J. Johnson, a comedian?
No. This is...
Nah,
we going in the past. This is... They call him the Portuguese, but he was a so-called black man that we did a lot of research on him. I know I have. I know Topcast did too. I think he's coming out of Portuguese, but they'll tell you he's an African out of Angola. But if you read in there, it talks about him being they label him the so-called first black slave owner. And they talk about how back, because it was the 17th century, so people was questioning how was he able to do this. When I thought all black people were enslaved, and how we started finding out all these guys, William Ellison and them, were so-called black people with slaves. But they tell you right there when you're reading on A.J. Johnson, it tells you that black was a status. Mm-hmm. So this is the thing that people aren't getting. And this is the topic that goes into what me and my relative, remember, that was just over here. We're talking about this, having this topic. When he's talking about that our people, you know, this is the verbal discussion, when me and him had this conversation a few years ago, and he said he talked to some of the relatives, and they told him, you know, that Big Mama was an Indian. But the thing is that people ain't able to differentiate that the status is what puts you, you know what I'm saying? It's not this...
Almost like a place.
They almost like they like try to identify with this black, and we know we're not this color. And you're calling yourself that, and it's a status. You're onto a status, and it says it right there in Anthony Johnson that later on his descendants, once they started passing these laws in the black codes, it lumped them all in. So they weren't able to be as prosperous as he was because they got thrown into the black status, which they tell you was a lower class. They literally say this a black was a status, and it's a lower class status. So it took you from one status to bring you to another status. So you went from a high class status to a lower class. So my point, what I'm making also, is that, you know, you have to go into Indian slavery. That's the thing that is not talked about. So when you go into Indian slavery, then you start understanding that when you have, it's not a color thing. You know, people were enslaving their own people. And this has nothing to do with Africa. You can get rid of all that mess. We the Indians, and it's a thing that was going on with status, because you had in Europe, you had them people being enslaved also. And they were being brought here, whether they're Negropeans or Europeans. They were all being brought here. And that's how they started to gain leverage and change their status. The same way that we're in this position, we can gain leverage, what Tariq Nasheed is saying, for us to start looking out for ourselves and supporting ourselves and stop bringing in all these foreigners and giving them a hand up into the game. You know, we got to take care of ourselves, and then we could get on top back on our status. And then we can start really pushing this genealogy thing and start, when we want to, what would you call it? Like, boy, you over there falling asleep?
Yeah.
You know, it's, when we want to vote or make somebody, you know, put somebody over, it's like these political or your governments,
if you want to enact change,
mayors. We got to start, we won't have to start doing, once we get into our power, start going off of genealogy. Because we've seen this has been played against us with this so-called lumping everybody in as blacks. You send an African over here, and I'm already hearing through the homies, that's, you know, through the system of being locked up, that they're employing a lot of these Africans in the prisons. And they don't have no love for you at all, which they shouldn't. They just as worse as the white people. You know, so you get stuck on this color game, and you can put yourself in a bad spot with that, like we already are. Because you'll start letting these Africans do their thing, and they'll start getting rich like they're doing, and they're not putting no resources on you or helping you or the community here. They're taking the resources back home and helping their people prosper.
As they should.
Exactly. You can't be mad at them for that, but the people that be mad at them is the ones that don't even know, because they don't know who they are. So they on this black
the ones
thing.
that be mad at them, if you really pay attention to them, they don't even help their own family. I mean, they get mad.
But as far as the youth be like that. Like, why do they treat us like that? And it's like, because you're not them. You got to understand that. You always gonna, well, why do they got this business going and this and that? And they don't try to help us, or they're not supposed to. They're not you. You're the only one that's stuck in the black cloud. It's like a cloud. You stuck in the black cloud, a storm that's got you spinning, a tornado that got you dizzy. What do you say about that?
I think it's true. If you calling yourself black, I mean, they're gonna treat you like everybody's the same. So they're just gonna keep treating you how. I mean, if you want to be black, they're gonna treat you as black.
And what is black?
Death. That's what it means. How they getting shot and all that. They letting all the Africans take all the other businesses that they could be doing. They letting all the other races do it too.
And all the
it's like what
so-called black Americans just sit back.
Like we was talking about in the store, how the
Asians
Asians run the hair stores and all that.
Way.
Hold on, what did you say?
How the Asians run the hair stores.
Mm-hmm.
And the Indians run the gas stations and all that. On our land, we should be doing that stuff.
Yeah. So when you're in a state of blackness, the black cloud, the dumbness, you just get what's coming to you until you wake up, you know, and shake it off and understand and start talking to your family members, you know, and gather as much information as you can about them and who they are and your great grannies, you know. And that's the thing that's,
first of all, they should be handling their family like they're trying to handle outsiders. That's part of the problem. Handle your family like you try to handle or expect them outsiders to handle you. You imagine how your family life will change. Quit treating your in-house family that you know is your family as your enemy. You guys need to work together and come together and build something, and quit relying on outside resources. I mean,
that's deep.
It's so much stuff and so many things in the past have showed you what have worked and what has not worked, and the stuff that we've been doing has not worked. It hasn't worked at all. Even this day to day. I mean, everybody get up and go to work, but if we had our choice, we would not go to work. We go to work because we've been put into a situation that we rely on the electricity, the gas, and the food that goes to the grocery store, the stuff we need to pay the bills. Even on the landlord, if you're renting your house, you rely on those people instead of working together to put your money together to buy a family home where you can stay in till the next person can jump off and get their own. and build your own stuff. Quit relying on other people. These people don't have to help you. They do it because they're benefiting from it.
And that's what I would say also, because just like you saying is that a lot of people, you know, before they should, a lot of them ain't digging into their ancestors yet, but they're going to, and find out that their ancestors have acres and acres of land. But until then, in the meantime, in between time, you need to be investing in something. Buy, like you saying, buy a house. You and your family. It seems like even with the so-called woke people, the indigenous people, the American indigenous, you'll see them do these podcasts or talk on these things, or even the audience, the supporters and stuff like that, right? The ones that support us or support themselves or supporting the people. You know, they will believe that they okay with staying in an apartment or whatever their condition is instead of still leveling up. You're in this system, so why not win in the system? You know, just like we did. We bought a house. Mm-hmm. Why is it people will be like, well, I'm going to just sit in this shack and wait until I do all my genealogy and get it all lined up so I can get my family's land back? Well, in the meantime, between time, won't you own something? And then, as you still doing that, you pick up something else, right? You get your ancestors' stuff back, and you done got something in on the side. You know, it could never be a bad thing to have something on the side.
Right. I just think you need to become more self-sufficient and self-reliant. If anything, if this issue hasn't taught us anything at all, it should tell you that you can depend on yourself and your immediate loved ones. Some of you guys are struggling like now within the family group, but all that can be overcome. You just got to be willing to put egos and stuff aside, because at the end of the day, you need to figure out what the end goal is. I mean, at the end of the day, one thing that we do know, the two things that we do know, we're born and we die. But what is going to be your impact and your memory that you leave behind to your loved ones and stuff like that? I mean, that's to me what you should be pondering, not when the next Jordans is going to come out. When am I going to get my next Gucci bag, or when I'm going to go out and party next? Nobody's going to remember you for any of that stuff at all. And then when you look at the shoes, speaking of Jordans, you got to think, you guys are paying $200 for shoes. It takes about $10 to make. So what are you investing in?
Why not themselves?
Exactly.
Your kids, like we do with him. Put your money into your kids and everything, you know, to get them a better. That's your best investment you could ever do, is into your own family. You know, people go out there and go to casinos and gamble. Why don't you just gamble on your kids? Mm-hmm. Put your money on them and see where they go, how far they go. You know? And what you behind them, you really can't lose if you stay behind them like you're supposed to. And
especially because when you invest, and he knows, and your kids knows, and your family know, we don't benefit other than knowing that he's well-rounded, healthy, growing, and that he's going to be successful, and we love him unconditionally. Anything that we do for him is unconditional. We don't expect anything back in return except for him to be well-rounded, healthy mentally and physically, and then him to pass that on to the generations to come.
But we would do benefit, though.
We do benefit. I mean,
as far as his offspring, you know, if he's fully, you know, if we grounded him right and everything, then we reap the benefits of, just like our ancestors right now are reaping the benefits of us coming to this knowledge and knowing who we are. So everybody wins.
But it's situation. Not, when I say unconditional, I mean, it's like, that's like free. It's free. Mm-hmm. Most people look like when they do something for someone, they expect some monetarily something in return or something, you know, instead of being just happy that someone's...
Well, that's how they've created the...
Well, we all are work in progress. We're all a work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight. We're still growing. We're still learning. But when you know better, you do better. I mean, that's all you can do. Strive to be better than you was yesterday. Baby steps.
Yeah.
But
an Indian is just an Indian. Or American Indigenous person is American Indigenous person. People have this certain thing where they'll say, like, well, if you know what I'm saying, wilding or you dingy looking, oh, that's an Indian right there. You know, you know what I'm saying? But shoot, an Indian is just an Indian. Whether he's in a suit getting his money, or whether however it is, they'll make it seem like if you a hood, you know what I'm saying, a hood female out there fighting and all that. You see that? That's that wild Indian. Yes, the wild Indian stuff. But all Indians wasn't doing that. We all got different qualities about us. different tribes have different vibes. We all move different. So we can't just put this when things going wrong, or you know what I'm saying, when they say the stripping females and all that. Oh yeah, she Indian. You know, that's how they used to get down. Now all Indians didn't get down like that. All Indians wasn't exploiting their sex or stuff like that.
Well, I think history repeats itself. There's nothing new in history. How you see groups of people and that their element is the same way it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
People gravitate to what they know or what they're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, certain things that's negative behavior, that's not producing anything for you in life, you're going to have to reevaluate yourself, and only you can do that.
Yeah, because they can correct it. Because
Right.
a lot of it, I think, is a lot of it's due to this goes back to genealogy. When you know who you are and you know who your people are, you kind of fall in that same category. You know, so if you read about, and this is no disrespect to anybody, but if you start doing your genealogy and you see your grandma having several kids by several different dudes, and you see that same quality in you, then you know that's something that was passed down. You see this pattern, so you can have the ability to change it, or you can still follow that was written. You know what I'm saying, through you. But see, as far as like with me, right? As you've seen through my genealogy, a lot of them was in the wars and stuff. They're all warring through on my grandma's side, my dad, you know, the old man's side, and my mom's side. And so that shows you that I already knew that I was going to be in the streets. I got to be doing some type of war type thing. Whether I would have took the route to in the military or in the streets, I have to be doing something. I'm a combatant. You know, I'm a physical type person. So I have to be working out. I have to be doing something. And the same thing with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I play basketball.
And what else? What do you do in your leisure time? Do you train for basketball? Do you work out?
Yeah, I work out. I be in the garage with my dad. Sometimes.
Well, do you feel the need to work out, or do you feel like you force yourself, or is there something in you that's already, you feel like you want to do it?
Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I feel like I do want to do it. It's just in the middle sometimes.
So any last words? We had 47 minutes. We've been on here.
I don't have anything. I just say, you know better, do better. Strive to be better than you was yesterday. If last week is too far behind. Every day at a time.
1% each day.
Hmm?
Say 1%. You get better 1% each day.
So on that note, and that's what I would say. And shout out again to Tariq Nasheed. All those that have been doing the work. All the brothers and sisters. OVB, you remember him? We used to watch his stuff where he was. That's another thing too. He was doing a good job with that when he was putting the surnames of the Indians and stuff. When you find your relatives, it'll basically like a lot of the surnames. It's not 100%, but a lot of them would lead you to certain tribes. Because remember how he was showing that certain, if you're in the Carolinas, this is like the surname you need to be looking for. But that's not also true too. And it was showing like some of the free people of color he was doing. But shit, when you look at ours, we got free people of color that's not even listed in those lists. You know, you talk to the next person, they got people that they know back in those times that had land acres and stuff like that that's not listed in there. So a lot of the history is just scattered. And I think that's what we need to do too also. Is start getting together our people surnames also that's not listed in online that we could find or in books and stuff like that. So it broadens it out and you could capture more people's minds with that. And get them on the bandwagon to know, like, okay, this is my family line right here. I didn't see it on this list, or I didn't see it on online when I was looking this, that. But here this person has his history that he's put up on his own genealogy showing that. And you just take that snippet, that name, and give it to the people. Maybe we need to make a booklet or something. Who's that? Sister Becky, I think. She was having like a newspaper or something like that where she was putting out. That's maybe what they need to be doing. Is put these names down. We all need to be They need to be going and asking all of us, around the community, these names. What is your ancestor's name that was freed at this time, this and that, and put together that booklet. See, it's going to take us to rewrite this story. Everything else is written from them, which qualifies, but it's not everything. Just like we know, they can't take the whole census. Everybody wasn't accepting that. Everybody wasn't opening their door for that. So there's times with this genealogy stuff, we dig into there and we're going to find stuff that...
It's a great tool to get you to somewhere else. I wouldn't hang my hat 100% on it. There was a lot of times I was reading with the census where the people would just, if they couldn't get to the household, they would ask the neighbor how many people live there and what people live there. But it's definitely a great tool to utilize, but I wouldn't hang my hat on it 100%. If you know for a fact your oral history has told you something, I'm going to say go with your oral history versus what...
Oh, yeah, that's always a hands down. But you're always going to need a paper trail also.
You do.
Because the system that is made off of...
but it's a great...
they say the... the pen is mightier than the sword?
I mean, but it's a good tool to use.
Yeah.
But it doesn't trump your oral history at all to me.
Yeah, but it's next.
Yeah.
It's the next thing I would say that slices and dices and separates people, instead of the generalization. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Because when you get into that black, it just generalizes.
Mm-hmm.
And you just feel like we all got the same struggle when we all didn't.
Well, I know another thing about looking at the census is I noticed looking at from my ancestors and their censors that the naming convention, it gives you another avenue to look at. Like, hey, I didn't see it here, but you also got to be mindful of how the names were spelled wrong.
That's a big piece.
And the difference. So that's another thing you can link up, and it really helps you move a little further.
Yeah, I showed that in one of mine too. On one of my videos where I was showing how they spelled the Calloway name, Caloway, and then there's the double L, then it starts with a K. So when you doing all that, as far as like, you don't want to leave no stone unturned when you're doing that.
And that's like my grandpa. His name is Roosevelt. They called him Roosevelt on one of the censuses.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like really weird. I was like, what? But it was him because it was still connected him to his parents and his siblings.
Yeah, and that goes on with mine too, because remember with my sister now, they were saying Chapman. Mm-hmm. And then when I went back for it, I was like, no, it's Chapman. And they were like, no, it's M-O-N, it's Mun. And I said, no, it's M-A-N, it's Chapman. Mm-hmm. So that's what was throwing everybody off too. So when you're doing genealogy, you're looking at that. So there's even part of it that's on there too.
Which is funny
with the modern day.
Not to interrupt you, but it's funny that you should say that, because a lot of the last names, when people got last names, when you read about last names, it equated to what they do. So it makes me wonder, like, if your ancestors were real chatty.
Oh, yeah, the Chapman. Yeah, Chapman. He's a Chapman.
So, and I know my family on my dad's side, our last name is White, and we're all light-skinned. So, it's funny.
But that wasn't a coloration back then.
No, but it's just
funny humorous right now, yeah.
It's just funny when you think about how
they might have that status, though.
Yeah. It's just funny how the last names were equated to, like, something you were in the profession of. Mm-hmm.
That goes to show you, like, it does, because how do you have white people the name Freeman? Right. Chris Freeman. Mm-hmm. And then you have so-called people of color, copper-colored people with that same name. Mm-hmm. So you see? So you're dealing with, this is a free man and that was a free man. Mm-hmm. So at one point in time, there was people, both different colors, that was enslaved, which we already know. But this is for the people that don't know. Yes, majority of the slaves were the white people.
It's interesting. Last names are interesting when you read on it.
Yeah, and they tell you a lot. And I was on this way before, even before we were even on this Indigenous, or even on the, because we had the Israelite thing going for a minute. Mm-hmm. But before any of that, I always knew, as far as I don't know what got me into that. I don't know, but I was always interested in people's last names, and I would know. From doing all the research, I would always tell, like, if it was Irish last name, or if it was a English last name, or... Because I remember one time just looking at one of my buddies at work a long time ago. Way before all this, probably about 7, 8, 9 years ago. when we first moved down here,
Mm-hmm.
and his name, and I remember his name, and I was like, oh man, you German. And he was like, oh yeah. So a lot of those names have always been, I don't know, it was a knack for me with these names. And it just, eventually it came in handy with the genealogy thing. It would be helpful and help me a lot.
It's funny how a lot of stuff that you did when you were younger or in your earlier years, you don't realize how you retained it and how you can pull it into now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, that's...
Yeah, into today's, equation or whatever you're trying to, it'll fit somewhere and you be like, dang, like.
That's why I learned it.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I learned it back then. But yeah, I would just say
this
when
guy
you know
right
better,
here
do
sleeping.
better.
I think it's pretty late too, so
Yeah,
I got him
tomorrow.
What time is it?
It's only 9:18. It's not even that late.
Yeah, but it's late. He got school tomorrow and everything. So yeah, y'all. My word of advice would be: never believe anything anybody tells you, not even us. Go and research it. Mm-hmm. Research everything. And research the researchers, and always stick on your genealogy. And anytime you got any spare time, just play around with it and see how far you get with it. Go and ask your family. And this is for all those who don't know. Go and ask your family that's coming into this truth, the new people that might stumble across this video. Make sure you share it, though, because we've done a lot for y'all in this community. We done had him on here since he was young, small. Had my wife on here. We showing you our family. A lot of things. I done had my mom on phone calls. Y'all hear on there recorded. My relative on there talking about this. This is stuff that people ain't never did. Right? I'm doing things that people ain't never did. And it's a trend. I'm not saying I'm the first one to do it. But what I'm saying is I want to start the ball off rolling so y'all can do it. When everybody was talking about mounds, we went to the mounds. Remember that? There was no videos with nobody at the mounds. Everybody was scholars with the mounds and everything, and we went there and gave the people that. And they still was like, went for the people that still talking about it. Like, nah, we want to mess with them, then y'all, we don't care y'all done went there. It's like, what? We done gave you everything. Gave you the kids' time, our time, everything, and this is what is it? This is the thanks I get. But yeah, y'all, make sure y'all sharing, subscribing, putting your family on. This is a family channel, man. This is what we do. About the family. We bring everybody. So y'all ain't got to hear me talk about it. You can hear my mom on here talking about the conversation with her. Right? Her admitting she's an Indian. Her people was Indians. You got my wife right here. She telling you about her people. And we're going to have many more. So on that note, that's what I would say. Be trendsetters. Do what the people ain't doing. Be creative in your art. Because it's an art. And everybody sees it. You got anything else? See, he's half asleep. Y'all see him. Boy, you ain't on no drugs, are you?
No, I just took a melatonin.
Just say no to drugs.
You know that melatonin.
Oh, okay. This is why he be growing, y'all. He be sleeping like a mug. But he's active little youngster, but I don't know if they could.
But we got to get him on a bedtime schedule.
I just took a melatonin for the video, so.
It was an impromptu. He was pulled in.
And it's all natural. All natural.
Well, melatonin is natural in your body anyways. So.
Now, I think some of them that I looked up that had...
is melatonin in your
certain
brain?
Drugs, though.
Oh, you mean the pill itself?
Yeah. Certain
but
ones
melatonin
have...
is something you produce naturally.
Oh, yeah. I know
body.
that. Yeah. But I don't know. This is Fire Wolf in the tribe or the clan or, politically correct or politically wrong, however y'all want to say it, This is what it is. That's what the channel, I don't know when we're going to switch the name, but because we still got up as two birds of the same feather. But eventually we might change it over, or we might just introduce ourselves like this in the video and keep it like that. So y'all let me know how y'all want to rock with it. Give us some input, feedback,
We welcome questions.
Yep. On that note, feathers up.
Feathers up.
Arrows up. What is it? Wise up.
Rise up, tribe up.
There we go. We out.
Good night.